Okay, so now it's 3 o'clock, at least in Sweden. So good afternoon, everyone, and it's time to get started. First, we'd like to go through some ground rules. Given the international context of this meeting, we'll be speaking English today. You will be muted as the audience, and your cameras will be off. You can write questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer them if time permits, and otherwise we will follow them up after the webinar. But there's a Q&A chat where you can write questions. And also we'll be recording this session, so anything we say can and will be held against us, I guess. So welcome everyone to this joint webinar where Business Sweden and the Swedish Energy Agency want to give you a global perspective on trends in the energy sector, as well as information on the business opportunities and the support that's available from Business Sweden and the Swedish Energy Agency for your international operations. My name is Robin Peterson, and I work in the Smart Energy team at Business Sweden, and I'm based in Stockholm. And I'm very happy today to be joined by my colleagues from around the world in this webinar, as well as by Mr. Paul Westin from the Swedish Energy Agency, and you will be hearing more from them later. This is our second session today. This morning we focused a bit more on APAC, Asia region, and now in this afternoon we'll be highlighting the Americas, and we're also joined therefore by my colleagues from the US, but also colleagues from France and from Kenya. Next slide, please. In today's meeting, then we will start quite broadly with a global overview of the trends and the developments in the energy sector. And this is based on a study that Business Sweden finished early this year. And this study was led by Anna Lieberg, who's our Trade and Invest Commissioner to Germany. And she's also our Industry Practice Lead Energy for the EMEA region. She will be followed by Paul Westin, who will present the Swedish Energy Agency's role and their available support for Swedish companies on the international markets. After that, we'll get a very more specific and start presenting some selected programs that companies can engage in to win business abroad. So I dare say that there's something for everyone in this session this afternoon. There's something for large companies who are looking at mega deals over £1 billion crowns, to small companies who might be out on their first venture in new markets. There are opportunities in generation, transmission, storage, etc. So it's quite broad. We'll be presenting quite a wide spectrum of how you can win business abroad. Although we only unfortunately have time to highlight a few examples of what we can have to offer, we hope that this will illustrate how we work and what you can benefit, how you can benefit. Next slide. So first, briefly, just about Business Sweden. We work in 7 different business ecosystems, and today we're representing the smart energy ecosystem. And you can say that everything we do, all our work should work towards the 6 points that you can see at the bottom of the slide. That's our purpose. And our focus today in this session is on the first 3 that are being bold. So to grow SMEs in and beyond Europe, connect innovative startups and scale-ups to global innovation hotspots, and to support leading companies to win the large international deals. And there are quite a few of those in the energy sector. Next slide. We have a truly global team working with smart energy, and you will hear from some of our colleagues on the markets today. But I think here are 6 key people for you to get in touch with if you want to engage. The 3 on the right are based in Sweden, including myself there, and we work globally. And Anna and Pavan and Mats to the right, they head up our work with the energy sector for Europe, Middle East and Africa, Asia Pacific, and North and South America, respectively. Next. And we have so much going on within the energy sector, I think, which is illustrated here. And then in addition to these projects that you can see here, there are many others that we are currently starting up, and there's some that we cannot show here for confidentiality purposes. But there's a lot going on, and we're very engaged. And later today, we'll go into detail in some of these initiatives to explain the purpose, the business opportunity, and how you as a company can engage and be a part of this to win business abroad. And as you can see, there are opportunities in different markets, in different sectors. And here I haven't even included some of the projects we're doing with the Swedish Energy Agency, because Paul will speak more about those a bit later, for example, some in India and Indonesia. And in many, if not all of these projects, we work together with with partners such as the Swedish Energy Agency, SEK, EKN, Swedish embassies, NIB, and many more. And so it's a true Team Sweden approach. Next. And these are the projects we'll be highlighting later. We want to illustrate how our programs work and what they can do for you. But now let's take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture and get some insights on the energy sector globally. So with that, I hand over to my colleague Anna Liberg. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Robin. Speaking here to the core of the Swedish energy community, you are of course on top of that 70% greenhouse gas footprint globally comes from the energy sector, including industry, transportation, and the building sectors. But also that electrification is a major driver towards net zero, and that renewables are likely to account for 80% of the growth in global electricity demand until 2030. We will need low carbon hydrogen and synthetic biofuels to bridge clean electricity to heavy industry and long haul transport. Fossils will go from 70% of global energy demand to zero, as we see that the oil peak will come before 2030. But this is really depending on the restart of the economy and green measures that are taken. So with energy as a prioritized Swedish ecosystem, we set off to take a look of the key transformation and trends that will impact the energy landscape in the decade to come. Let us have a look on a few of these trends and how they will impact your global business. And we firstly turn to the digital decade. Digitalization is of course required to reach a faster clean energy transition. However, in many places globally, we see that the challenged financial of utilities and grid operators has led to underinvestments in the electricity network. Good news are that these investments are bound to increase in the decade to come, and that there will be a sizable focus on the digital side of these investments. Electrification will increase demand on the grid, forcing digitalization to meet the integration of renewables and storage into the network. EVs create an electrical downstream challenges, but it also is a possibility for storage and grid flexibility. Big data and AI-powered analytics reduces grid costs while improving planning and asset utilization. However, the digitalization, the automation, and new devices creates increased cybersecurity concerns. Hence, we see business implications of AI and cybersecurity solutions will be in demand and mandated in every part of the energy system. Digital business opportunities will be driven by change in regulations, and especially we will see them now due to the investments in economical recovery. Then let's look at this from a policy perspective. National determined contributions or NDC plans needs to be progressed into actionable clean energy strategies and to be in line to reach the Paris 2030 targets. EU took a first step end of last year, but many more regions need to follow. Additional global investments of $1 trillion will be required right now in the years 21 to 23 if we want to put 2019 as a peak of global CO2 emissions. At the same time, strategic policy and governmental investments is a crucial base for regional competitiveness. Just look at China and EU's track record of influencing supply and demand to pave the way for leadership in renewables and bridge technology. One way to go about is to create a testbed environment for virgin technology and encourage the deployment of these into new infrastructure. Governmentals also are in charge of regulations that need to adapt to the new energy landscape. One such example is to define high sustainability demands on new energy as batteries. Implications that we see are that leading actors should take an active role in policy and standardization discussions. Do invest in a long-term point of view of market outlook based on the policy landscape. And of course, you need right away to look on the opportunities coming out from the different COVID-19 recovery packages that are hitting the market in different parts of the world. And we will hear more about that, for example, today from what is happening in the US. Then let's turn to the ecosystem itself. For the energy ecosystem, we see that critical resources are shifting. Global oil supply will limit its influence on global markets as oil demand will peak. Non-ferrous metals and rare earths, crucial for renewables and batteries, are limited not by actual supply, but by sustainable mining investments. Soft key assets on par with natural resources will be policy, know-how, and the industrial systems. If we look on integration, this will happen in many different ways, vertical, horizontal, and geographical. We see that global fossil actors will move speedily towards renewable footprint. Alliances will emerge for the supply of rare earths for renewables. Utilities will expand geographically and generation blur into transmission and distribution markets. We will see consolidation to reach scale effects for technology leadership in new areas, such as wind. Digitalization will drive entrance from other ecosystems, such as telecom and digitech. Industry and automotive will look upstream for partnerships for battery and hydrogen technology. Well-invested innovators and startups will increasingly challenge the incumbent industry. New market conditions and user cases from, for example, India and Africa will foster new innovators. Regionalization is, of course, a hot topic now during the pandemic. And we see that will impact global suppliers of core technology to power industry. And geopolitics will continue to influence, for example, larger investments in energy links. We hence suggest to invest in a position as a sustainability leader in core fields of your business. And be prepared for major turnarounds in the ecosystem positions, and do consider unconventional partnerships. Let's have a look on the consumer market. And the consumer is not only a consumer anymore, but a prosumer and a flexumer. As you know, the public have for decades influenced key decisions on energy. Now they will do so even more, not only through voting, but also through the wallet. Global consumer communities will move from consuming energy to generating and providing energy-enabled services. It is then key to only subsidize flexumer investments that have a net positive climate impact for the whole energy value chain. Clean energy will be the next premium consumer value. Green electricity will be valued as a core part of any product and service. Consumers will choose when and what electricity to consume according to dynamic pricing in an even higher extent. Hence, we suggest to develop and provide services to enable the consumer turns flexumer. Do articulate clean energy content of your product and service for a premium position and price. Adapt pricing model to let consumer pay as go in, especially in liquidity low markets. And last, let's have a look on the accelerated servitization. Servitization will boost clean energy. Global energy efficiency measures can reduce greenhouse gas emissions up to 40%. The drive for energy saving will grow the energy efficiency services along the entire energy ecosystem. Market platforms will diversify and offer their offer in terms of green and emission-free electricity. The sharing economy hits the energy market, and localized business model offering energy-enabled services such as charge and runtime and uptime will emerge. Services will emerge around microgeneration, grids, and storage. This all implies that the energy system, digitalization, and efficiency service market grows significantly. Pricing models based on energy saved will increase margins. Electricity trading market platforms will diversify, and energy-enabled services will be the next blue ocean for shared services. So, then to conclude, with this positive outlook from the new business landscape in mind, I am now keen to hear my partner and following speakers how we can address the implication of all these business opportunities through collaboration with the Swedish Energy Agency and new companies in our global promotion programs. So I hand over to Paul Westin at the Energy Agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Robin, for having me. It's always a pleasure to do things together with Business Sweden. Thank you for a very great presentation about the new business landscape, which the report that I would really like to recommend to all the viewers to take part of in full. So my name is Paul Westin. I work at the Swedish Energy Agency as a senior business developer and working with internationalization. Next, please. So the Swedish Energy Agency, our mission is that we say that we are leading society's transition to a sustainable energy system, but we do not do it ourselves. We cooperate with organizations, government organizations, but very much also with industry in different development projects. Next, please. So we are the national authority for energy policy issues, so we have a responsibility to cater for policy analysis and statistics, but one of our main tools is the research grant, which is about 1.2 billion Swedish kronor per year, which is also quite broad in its scope, so we can fund from basic research to commercialization and also internationalization of companies. We also have the government's responsibility for international climate investments, and this might also be interesting. My colleagues are now working on how to implement the Article 6 possibilities where governments and industry can cooperate on international climate projects. Next, please. And in line with what Anna shared, we have rather ambitious targets in Sweden and for Sweden when it comes to energy policy measures. And especially the climate target needs international cooperation. But we also see that, for example, the 50% more efficient use of energy is a target that we are not really achieving at the moment. So this is also a challenge. Well, of course, emissions from transports is also a big challenge, but I think we're coming along with the electrification and the biofuels. Sweden is also consistently ranking high in different international comparisons when it comes to SDGs and energy policy rankings. Next, please. It was also interesting for us at the Energy Agency to see the last government budget for 2021, and I just put up a few examples, but in general I think the budget on environment and energy and climate was strengthened by about 2 billion euros. And one program that the Energy Agency is heavily involved in is the Industry Step program, Industriklivet, where we can focus on hydrogen, zero emission steel, negative emissions, and plastic refineries, biofuels and batteries, for example. But there were some other interesting points also, fossil-free aviation, and also there's a large program for energy efficiency measures in apartment buildings. Plus also state green credit guarantees up to actually 2.5 billion euros. Next, please. And we also have the confidence from the government to lead some of the important investigations or tasks, regeringsuppdrag. And we already started last year with a battery task together with the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency and the Geological Survey of Sweden, and delivered an intermediate report last month. It's also in line with what Fossil Free Sweden has already produced, but we see that, as Anna mentioned also, that the sustainable mining issue and circularity is very important. We also recently received a task of developing a hydrogen strategy, and that's a very quick task. Already by July 31, we should submit the report, and it's not only on hydrogen, but it's also on electrofuels and ammonia. And I heard my Director General recently speak a little bit about it, saying that he will call for a high-level meeting with industry, but also to see if we can work together with the Nordics on this, as we have a common electricity market in the Nordics. It might be also quite good to see the hydrogen strategy in that context. We also have the task to develop a national center for carbon capture and storage, including carbon capture and storage, which might lead to negative emissions if implemented. And then I also like always to highlight the task that we have together with other authorities such as the Swedish EPA, the Swedish Growth Agency, Vinnova, and Business Sweden, among others, the Smart City Sweden platform, which is showcasing Swedish solutions for smart cities. Next, please. So basically, when it comes to the internationalization approach, we work mostly to promote SMEs under the government's export strategy. But for the full R&D chain, we can also give support to larger companies. So we have a few target markets, and it's not the small ones, it's actually the largest ones. It's China, India, Indonesia, Germany, United Kingdom, and the USA that we prioritize from the Energy Agency. But there are also non-market specific programs. I would also like to highlight that my colleagues in the R&D department also give calls for proposals on pilots and demonstrations, and also verification between the companies and its customers. And these programs and calls for proposals are open for international projects, although we mostly receive domestic proposals. So that might be interesting to look into for some of you listening in today. Next, please. This is a similar map as the one Robin showed earlier, but these are the programs that we are involved in from the Energy Agency, many of them together with Business Sweden, some of them with other actors. For the Americas, for the USA, for example, we also work with finding access to private equity, to Swedish startups. And not yet active in Africa or Latin America, but I know my colleagues from the climate department are active there. Next, please. So I would like to show you just very practically how to get in touch with us. Our webpage is sadly mostly in Swedish, but under Forskning och innovation, research and innovation, you will find the link, I want to launch my company internationally. And then you will see a list of programs that we have. Next, please. And also the possibility to send letter of interest to us, and we will respond promptly to that and guide you in which programs are open for intakes and when, etc. Next, please. So you can also read more. I mentioned our own webpage is not very much in English, but our program web pages are. Sustainable Heating and Cooling by Sweden, Marie will talk about a little bit soon. We also have the Swedish-German Clean Tech platform together with the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. We have the Innovations Accelerator in India, which has actually introduced more than 50 companies to the Indian market. We have a similar accelerator for Indonesia. And we also have something called the Clean Tech Hubs, which we are now remodeling, and that is not market specific. So look out for our calls for proposals for the new Clean Tech Hubs program. Then, as I mentioned, the Smart City Sweden platform, and also some thematic platforms on bioenergy and sustainability in the healthcare sector, much related to the energy issues of hospitals. And these are run by RISE and the Nordic Center for Healthcare. Okay, I think I'm out of time. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Paul. That was really an impressive amount of support in different areas for companies looking to expand internationally. And for those of you wondering, we will be sharing this presentation with you after the meeting, so you will get access to these slides. And also, if you're interested in the report that Anna presented, the more detailed version, you can also contact us and we can share that with you. Now we're getting even more concrete and specific, and we're looking more into detail to some highlighted projects. But we've also asked Mats to give us a brief update on what the developments are with the new administration investments plans in the energy sector in the US. So with that, I give the floor to Mats, my colleague who's joining us from New York.
Thank you, Robin, and good afternoon, everyone back in Sweden. My name is Matt Shore, and I'm a project manager based at our New York office. And I head up our industry practice group here within Smart Energy for the Americas team. While I'm based in New York, most of my work is focused on the US. I liaise with my colleagues on the different markets. So absolutely feel free to come to me with any questions about the Americas region. But today I'm going to speak a little bit about the Biden administration on a high level, what their plans are for the energy space. And then I'll look briefly on one US project that I'm heading up, as well as a Latin American project. So as we all know, President Biden is now the leader of the US after the election in November last year. And it was 4 years of the previous Trump administration where sustainability and environmental goals weren't really the top of the agenda. And we can see here that the Biden administration's climate agenda is almost a complete reversal of Trump's. It goes back more to the Obama era approach to climate change and sustainability, but it also develops and pushes that a little bit further, which is exciting to see. One of the key aspects that happen on day one, or planned intentions from day one, is of course the US hopefully coming back into the Paris Agreement and signing up onto that, as that's key for meeting the global climate challenges that exist. Regardless, not everything is done on a federal level, so I will touch a little bit on the state level as well. So during 2020, we all know the COVID pandemic laid havoc to pretty much global expansion plans, and the US wasn't spared in any ways. And unfortunately, as a result of this, the Biden administration has been focused or required to focus all the efforts here on their first 100 days relating to battling COVID, rolling out vaccines, etc. While that is very positive for general economic growth and opening up of the markets, the first 100 days of a US president is usually what sort of sets their agenda for the next 4 years and shows what they're aiming to do. So with Biden focusing more on COVID, unfortunately, his climate initiatives have had to take a back seat. Having said that, that is still top of mind for the Biden administration, so it will slowly come out and be implemented a little bit more here as COVID cases come down and vaccines increase. So we see here that the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions have decreased, compared to 2005 by about, or 2005 levels by about 10%. So the U.S. is on a reduction path. Unfortunately, it's not as much as it's required to be able to limit temperature increases as per the UN goals. So the Biden administration has set forth a very strong plan here on combating climate change in the US and making the US a world leader on this factor. So some of the key targets that have come up are a nationwide carbon pollution-free power sector. The goal is to make that much greener by 2035, and then have an economy-wide net zero emissions by 2050. As we know, the Biden administration can't do everything. They can legislate certain things, but it's mostly on the federal level. You still need Senate approval to get budgets passed, etc. And with the Senate being split 50-50, it's a bit of a challenge for some of his initiatives to get the support needed to be able to roll out. On the other hand, there are things that the Biden administration can do that influences the market, influences the states, encourages private sector to step up and do their part as well. So 3 of the major areas that we can see here, and it was part of Biden's electoral campaign, was to focus on federal investments on renewable energy, electrical vehicles, and grid and transmissions. There are many other subsectors and other sectors to this, but these are the 3 main ones as it addresses the 3 major emission emitters here in the US, which is transport, which represents about 30% of all emissions in the US, electricity generation around 27%, and then followed by industry and buildings at 20% and about 12% respectively. So there's about $400 billion that's going to be spent by the Biden administration over the next 10 years in clean energy and innovation. It's going to be focused within these 3 areas. I can give you some examples that the Biden had an executive order in January of this year where they mandated that all, there's a mandated stop to the Keystone Pipeline, for example, which to encourage the shift over to more renewables. The Biden administration also wants to have federal buildings, institutions, etc., to only purchase renewable energy, which requires the industry then to produce more renewable energies. And then they're going to legislate through the EPA emissions targets and the like. On the electrical vehicles front, it's the same there. On a federal level, the Biden administration would like to mandate purchasing of electrical vehicles. There's about, I think, 600,000 electrical vehicles that the federal government needs to buy over the next couple of years, and then offer incentives for individual consumers as well to buy EV cars, as well as roll out a charging infrastructure network across the US, where there is a focus on states to do it, and then the private industry needs to step up to match the gap there in growth. And then finally, on the grid side, investments in interoperability in the grids on the transmission level is going to be key to solve issues in the grid, or the balancing in the grid, as renewables come online, especially in different regions who have more wind or more solar focus. It needs to be balanced across the US. And we all saw what happened here just a few weeks ago in Texas, which is a grid unto itself and not connected to the other grids in the US. And when the snowstorm came through and the wind stopped blowing, the wind power plants went offline, solar didn't work. To be fair, they're only a small part of the overall energy grid, and the pipelines with natural gas and oil froze, and that was the major reason behind the shutdown there. But it all comes into play that the grids need to be improved from a resiliency perspective. So from a federal level, there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of guidance coming up from the Biden administration. It'll be interesting to see how states step up. Some of them are already playing their part. Others will be coming along as well as more funding is released. But it's going to be a very interesting play between the federal government, state level government, and private industry all working together to reach the sustainability goals. And as a result of this, Business Sweden and the Embassy of Sweden, Team Sweden in general, we're working on a interesting initiative here that I'd like to present on the next slide, which is called the Green Energy Alliance. So this is something that we've planned for during 2019. We couldn't initiate it until the Biden administration, or rather till the election happened and we knew who the president of the US was. And as a result, we're now working on this in full speed. So the Green Energy Alliance is an initiative with the goal to connect Swedish solutions with carbon reduction projects, and that's going to be the overarching theme. As I mentioned, the context for this is we're right on target, or we're on time to do this with the investments that the Biden administration is doing and the need to reduce carbon emissions even more in the US. We see that there are three main opportunities here. Again, energy, whether it be solar modules, solar PV, offshore wind, what we see here, 30 gigawatts coming online in the next 8 or 9 years. We're going to decarbonize the grid, and the US needs to update their transportation fleet as well. So what is the objective then of the Green Energy Alliance? Well, the Green Energy Alliance is going to be an umbrella initiative for carbon reduction and sustainability solutions. We welcome companies of any size, all the way from startups to the established companies, to join us here as a general member to help drive the sustainability and carbon reduction agenda with the partners that we're developing here in the US. And then within the Alliance, we're going to have specific tracks that's going to address, in particular, offshore wind, connect that to the grids, and then also work on electromobility and charging infrastructure and be able to tie the whole thing together. So Team Sweden will address business opportunities on behalf of the Alliance members. We will organize roundtables with key industry and governmental stakeholders. We'll network with project owners. We'll have site visits where you get to meet key decision makers, pitch your solutions, and then hopefully generate business opportunities. So that's what we'll be doing here over the next, well, it's going to be a year-long or 2-year project, but we're looking to actually start that in Q3. So how can you get engaged with us? Well, on April 8th, we're going to have a webinar with external speakers from the US Chamber of Commerce, as well as New York State. The US Chamber of Commerce is going to address more about the Biden's initiative and plans here, expand upon what I've already said today. We're going to talk about New York State's initiatives with offshore wind, and then we're going to have a soft launch of the Green Energy Alliance. So feel free to join that webinar on April 8th. We'll be sending that out through Business Sweden here. Q2 will have an application period, and from Q3 onwards, that's when we get to the fun and exciting stuff. So feel free to reach out to me for more information about this. And then progressing here, I'll talk about, on the next slide, we'll talk about an exciting initiative within biogas in Brazil. So Brazil is trying to create a national gas grid and have a roadmap for how to do that, as well as have a renewal of their bus and truck fleet to make it more sustainable. So Business Sweden in Brazil, together with other Swedish entities, have been working on feasibility studies with Brazil to help this get up and running, and they've been doing that for a couple of years now, and we're at the cusp of it actually coming to fruition. So the opportunity here is that Brazil has the potential of producing 84 billion cubic meters of gas each year, which could supply the country with about 40% of its energy demand and 70% of the current diesel consumption. So it's going to be a major push and switch here in their fuel usage if everything rolls out as planned. There are industry level stakeholders involved. The government of Brazil is involved. Cities like Sao Paulo are involved as well. So we're working strongly with all three different types of sectors that are necessary for this to occur. We're wrapping up. Business Sweden and Team Sweden is wrapping up the feasibility study. We're currently positioning, or we have positioned Sweden and Swedish competencies as a way to support the rollout of this in Brazil. And going forward, we'll be developing strategic cooperations with Brazil and Swedish companies to address specific business opportunities to meet the sustainability actions of this gas transition. And finally, support Swedish companies in their interactions with Brazilian counterparts, whether that be suppliers, EPCs, government stakeholders, etc. This has been ongoing, as I said, for a couple of years here. But what's exciting to follow here is about between Q2, Q3 is where we get the hopefully the official commitment between Sweden and Brazil to push forward on this on a much higher level. So join in the Swedish biogas initiative here with our colleagues in Brazil. Reach out to Andreas Rentner, who's the trade commissioner to Brazil, to get more information. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Marie Ek.
Thank you, Mats, and welcome to Paris and to Europe, back to Europe. So I'm happy to share some of the opportunities for sustainable heating and cooling solutions in France, in the UK, and also in the Netherlands. And we have, as Anna mentioned, there are a lot of investment from governments around Europe, heavily in the ecological transition, but also with the recovery incentives. And the district heating, when using renewable sources, is considered as one of the solutions for decreasing the CO2 emissions. We have mapped multitude of municipalities that are currently investigating both district heating and district cooling investments and expansions. Some of the important heat network projects are planned in, for example, in the Netherlands, the big heat roundabout, this large-scale infrastructure project to supply heat to the southern part of the province of South Holland, using the port of Rotterdam as one of the source of heat. In London, all the boroughs are also either making extensions or modernization on their existing networks. In France, we have, for example, Lille in the north of France, aiming to become the largest network. Plans and investments for both extension also and modernization. And we see there is a big interest to exchange, collaborate with Sweden, Swedish experiences and solutions. As Paul mentioned, we are running a program together with the Swedish Energy Agency, Sustainable Heating and Cooling by Sweden, both in the UK and in France. And through this program, you're very welcome to join the other 45 member companies. It gives you the opportunity to get insights from the market developments, the opportunities, and also through our joint promotion activities to get visibility and also, of course, access to market stakeholders. And we have several communication channels that you can benefit from within the program. In the Netherlands, we have this high potential opportunity going on in this South Holland region. And also there are other very interesting investments going on in the Netherlands. And there I urge you to contact my colleague Eva Ferrier in the Hague office. We have a lot of opportunities around Europe, so don't hesitate to contact us and we will be happy to support and discuss with you. The program here, together with the Swedish Energy Agency, the objective is really to strengthen the position of the Swedish technologies and services within this area around different countries, and also to promote collaboration and facilitate knowledge sharing between Sweden and these markets, and in order to accelerate the developments and to reach the climate goals, of course, in Europe and also across the world. We have a similar program going on in China. And as you can see in the bottom line there, we have different activities planned, specifically digital webinars here in May and June. And in the autumn, we plan for digital events, but hopefully we could meet physically again. So we have interest from these countries from Europe to come up to Sweden with delegations to look into concrete examples. And we will also organize a conference, hopefully in Sweden during this autumn. So that's a bit short information, and I'll be happy to interact with you if you're interested. And now I have the pleasure to hand over to the south, to Africa, to Rajab in Nairobi. So please.
Yes, thank you very much, Maria, and thank you all for the initial presentation. So I'm going to take you through our work that is currently ongoing in Uganda. And just to give a little bit of context, Uganda is actually a country that has a very low electrification rate. I want to look at the weighted rural-urban electrification rate currently stands at 26.7%. So the government is actually on an ambitious journey to make sure that they have universal access to electricity by, and that means that they have to really work on improving the electricity as well as improving on the supply of electricity. So we're working on both sides of the value chain. Over the last 3 years, we've been having quite a number of delegations to and fro Uganda and to Sweden, just discussing on the same, how can we collaborate, how can we work together as two governments to support Uganda to help them come out of this particular kind of crisis, if you might call it so. And this actually led to a signing of an MOU in June 2019. And in this particular kind of MOU, Ugandan counterparts or Uganda energy stakeholders identify prioritized projects that we might say were ring-fenced for Swedish companies. And these projects actually will amount to approximately 310 million USD with a Swedish content of 100 million USD. And this particular kinds of opportunities, as I said, maps around both all the players in the value chain. So it starts with the transmission or strengthening of the transmission network in Uganda. We also talked about generation that is floating solar park. We also have distribution network enhancement when it comes to the substations, and also having a monitoring and management platform, which is a SCADA system. And this is just part of the digitalization and integration of the whole systems into place so that we can have a single source of truth. So we have been engaging them, and what we're trying to do is to offer quite a fully financed project using SEK, EKN, and also SWED fund when it comes to financing of pre-studies. And then we're leveraging on this MOU, and at this point, we always want to really much encourage smaller Swedish companies to take part or to take advantage of the 100 million USD value when it comes to the MOU in Swedish content, so that they can actually participate in the same. And then we are continuously engaging the Ministry of Energy and other project stakeholders. And we're currently actually working with NIV, which is actually it's the International Council of Swedish Industry, and Life Academy as well, to offer capacity building to ensure continuity of the same once we leave this particular kind of project. I will move to the next slide. Good. And moving down south to Mozambique, whereby we're trying to secure opportunities, of course, again, in the generation and transmission of electricity. Again, Mozambique is also another country with a very low electrification rate, speaking of about 29%. And the country or the government is currently having ambitious plans when it comes to increasing access to electricity to all players or to all individuals in the country. And we have currently high value installation at HCB, which is actually a private utility in charge of distributing hydroelectric power to Mozambique and also the Southern African countries, and EDM, which is a government utility in charge of the generation, distribution, and transmission of electricity. Just to mention that SEDA has been having a long history in Mozambique, and it has supported them throughout in the energy sector, having a lot of investments when it comes to supporting the National Utilities Control Center and also carrying out several feasibility studies in hydro and power quality. So over the last few engagements that we've been having with Mozambique utility companies, we've realized that there is an opportunity of about 9 billion USD, which the government is looking at investing over the next 5 years. And this will account for about 200 million USD of opportunities for Swedish companies. When you look at these kinds of opportunities, it lies through generation, where they're looking at improving the generation of hydroelectricity. We look at also they're trying to increase generation when it comes to biomass, solar, mini hydros, micro and off-grid solutions as well. And currently what you're doing is you're trying to look at these projects into three particular kinds of buckets. Projects that maybe have not yet started, and then that's when we're going to propose pilots and proof of concepts kind of engagement. And projects that are currently on their tender phase, we're trying to come up with training so that we can make sure that we can be able to offer the total cost of ownership, for example. And then the projects that are on their early phases, we want to bring in sweat funds so that we can be able to work on maybe SIA studies, pre-feasibility studies, feasibility studies, RAP studies, and so on and so forth. So we want to come up with 1 or 3 business cases, identify Swedish companies, and of course position these companies so that they can be able to get this particular kind of opportunity. And as well, similar just to like the Ugandan case, we're trying to sign up an MOU with the stakeholders so that we can have a good framework whereby we can be relying our work on. So that would be me for now, for example, and also just to mention, we are organizing site visits, virtual trainings over the next year. And then of course, we will be trying to come up with a financing agreement to work with the same. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to invite Robin to take us through the next part of the presentation.
Asante sana, Rajab. Opportunity mingi. That's Swahili, one of the many languages I master. Rajab sometimes has difficulty with my pronunciation, but it means a lot of business opportunities. Okay, so we've heard now a bit about, quite a lot about different projects around the world, and some have been for both small and large companies, and we talked a lot about mega deals and big deals. Business Sweden also has a whole range of programs that are aimed at supporting specifically Swedish SMEs to enter new markets, and that's ranging from a digital tool which is going to be launched next week called Go Global, which is basically a expansion tool that you have in your pocket as an app in your phone, to market selection support, to hands-on coaching. And of all these projects we have that are targeting smaller Swedish companies, I would like today to highlight our Catalyst program. This is a program that's aimed at the top 10% of Swedish innovative companies, which means that we'll be looking at accepting and supporting 3 energy companies this year. The companies that are eligible have can have a maximum 249 employees and 50 million euro annual turnover. And the selected companies, they get a 3 to 6 month specific go-to-market project, which is tailor-made on the selected market. So it's the market is selected by the company, one that you're interested in or active in or is a good fit for you. And the focus of the project is commercialization. So maximum 30% should be market analysis, and the rest should be operational and commercialization. This program gives access to, apart from the funding and the project and the go-to-market project, it also gives access to world-class competence and a quite unique network within the energy sector. And that's because the selection process involves a pitch to a board of industry specialists and industry-specific investors, and they then turn into a valuable network for the selected companies. So they follow and support the selected companies normally after the selection. And the last date to apply for companies in the energy field is August 25th, and the actual pitching and selection committee will be done at the end of September, on the 25th of September. And if you're interested in this opportunity, then you can either just register on our website and apply, or you can contact me. And this comes with there's a fee for involvement of 30,000 crowns for the company, but the value is very, very big. And these are very popular programs. We've been doing them for a few years, and it's been very successful and very high ratings from the companies who pass and get this support. The new thing for this year is that we're actually working more within specific areas, so focused selection committees within energy this year. Okay, next slide. So to sum up, Now we've heard about the large global trends that are shaping our industry, what this means for Sweden and for Swedish companies. We've seen how the Swedish Energy Agency and also how Team Sweden with EKN, SEK and Swedfund and NIR, how we can support and what types of programs that Business Sweden has internationally. I hope you found this session relevant and interesting. And with that, I would like to thank you all for having participated, and I would like to urge you to contact us if you want to know more about Business Sweden and the Swedish Energy Agency's programs worldwide. Thank you very much to all participants, and have a good day.